Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to TED Talks Ball. Got a special Behind Enemy Lines edition. We've got 49ers and Eagles week. We've got Ryan from BSing Sports here. We had Bill on earlier this season when when both teams were 5-0. We did a Battle of the Undefeated sort of show. And now I've got his better half, or his other half, however you want to look at it, Ryan. From BSing Sports. He's a hardcore Eagles fan, but a pretty good guy. And we typically tend to see eye to eye on things on a regular basis. We'll see if we can put that to the test today. But Ryan, welcome. And how are you doing? It's just a victory Monday for the Eagles. Big win over the Bills yesterday in the late window, which was kind of interesting. And now you're playing the late window against us this week.
Yeah, so funny enough, the Eagles only have one scheduled 1 o'clock game the rest of the year. So if you were banking on watching them at the 1 o'clock window, it sucks. But I mean, they're probably going to flex the Giants game week 18 to 1 o'clock too. I'm sure by the time that game rolls around, it won't mean a whole lot. But the Eagles got a lot of primetime games coming up, with a lot of big stage games, and they got a lot of big-time opponents. The next one up is the San Francisco 49ers, which was the matchup I had circled on my calendar. So
there you go. We got Tim Hawkins in the house. He's got a bird name, and he says, "Go Birds." Welcome, Tim. We got Philly Bowl Entertainment, the Regal Eagle. And he's saying Eagles, Eagles. There you go. And it's like, I know him because he's been on before. You'll have to tell me how I know you because I'm blanking right this second. But, I think he's on with Gina.
Yeah, he's on with Gina.
I recognize the Sports Laugh and Chill crew. Yeah, it's just because he has a funny way of spelling bowl or bowel entertainment. So welcome. And I'm not gonna say go Eagles. Well, I read your chat, so there you go. I guess I have to. And then he says, "Yeah, Sports Laugh and Chill." Exactly. Yeah, I saw Miss Gina recently. Actually, I met Gina in real life for the first time. Paul Hope was out here from the 49ers Faithful UK. He and about 35 other of the UK Faithful flew over to watch the Bucks game, and we got tickets to the Gold Mine at Levi's, which is like this special seating it's free, but you like work for it. They make you sort of lead the cheers that kind of reverberate through the stadium. A lot of them start there. And so I met Paul, and he was like, "Oh, I'm not flying out till late on Tuesday." And I was like, we could get together for lunch. He's like, "Well, I'm booked Monday," because he was going to a Giants game and a Warriors game on Monday. But on Tuesday, he was free. And I told Jean, she's like, "Oh, I want to meet Paul." I'm like, "Well, maybe I could just pick you up on the way," because she lives, I'm in Mid-Peninsula. She's South City. And then we met up in the city in San Francisco and had a nice lunch. Took him for my favorite burger spot called Coswell's. But enough about that. Anyway, it was nice to get to meet Gina, though, for the first time ever. And fun to go to my first ever free 49ers football game. It was basically a result of doing this. I'd had the offer to go to the Gold Mine for our home opener against the Giants, the Thursday night football game. Mm-hmm. But my wife gave birth literally 3 days before, and it was C-section. So we were literally still in the hospital for that. And I just knew that was a bad one, not even to ask for that one. But yeah, so now we have a 10-week-old, and that's been a whole experience. That's probably, you were mentioning backstage that you hadn't seen me as much on Twitter. Some of it was to avoid the negativity. Some of it's just that I've been really busy. We had more help with the baby early on, and now we're kind of more on our own. And, it's like my wife will take the baby, and then I'll take our son. And we've gotten into RC cars, which is a lot of fun. Me and my son, he'll be 4 in January. Okay. So that's a little bit about me and us. But Randy's saying bowels, or we're talking about Philly. Oh boy. All right, makes sense. Jacob Green, Grown.
He's my co-host on our fantasy podcast.
Is it Krogan? Is that how you say it?
Yeah, Krogan.
There you go. Looks almost like Crone. My son likes to jump on my chest and hear me groan like, "Oh," when he crushes the wind out of me. But he says, "Daddy groans." That's fun stuff. Raised Wiki up here. It says TMB in the house. Love both these channels. Ryan, good to see you collab with Ted. Yeah, we collabed back before the NFC Championship game.
Yeah, I was trying to remember. I'm pretty sure it was a preemptive show to the NFC Championship game.
And we might have done something after. I know. I don't know. I mean, obviously, like I said, I know I worked with Bill, your other half of BSing Sports, week 6 when we were both 5-0. I was like, let's do a undefeateds show, before one of us loses.
Yeah. And then very shortly after.
No, we both of us, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so yeah, but except for you guys only lost 1 and we lost 3, so it took us a little longer to get out of our skid. We can talk about that.
Yeah.
I have some thoughts about that, but so here, what does bowl mean? Likely derived from boy. A bowl is just a person, usually a male person who's younger than the speaker. There are multiple ways to spell slang. Well, you are probably younger than me, Philly Bowl, unless you're older than 53. So we'll see. I know Ryan is definitely younger than me.
Just a little bit.
just a whisker. And bowl being the popular variations. There you go. He's a Broncos fan. Who's that?
That's Jake Krogan. He's a Broncos fan.
Ah, right on. Well, so I mean, they've been doing a little bit better recently. The Broncos. They beat the Chiefs, didn't they, just recently?
Yeah, Broncos 24-9. 24-9.
Wow, crazy. Steven's here. Don't bother me. Says looking forward to a good game. I think, especially after last time, wasn't very good. So yeah, we're all hoping for a good game. Absolutely. Saying what's up. Better now that you're here, Steven. Thanks for joining. Jacob says hottest team in football, the Broncos. I don't know about that. Did they won this last weekend too, I guess?
Yeah, they beat Cleveland 20.
Oh, that's saying something.
So the Broncos started out 1-5. They're 6-5 now.
Okay. Well, and the Browns have a hell of a defense, and DTR is starting to do a little better, I think. I do a weekly show with a Browns fan. We call it Faithful Dogs.
Okay.
Big Mike from the Man Cave. And, he wanted DTR all along. He never understood why they went with PJ Walker. Even if they're going to take some lumps, he'd rather take the lumps and hopefully DTR improve.
Confusing to me. Like, I don't understand. I didn't understand why they brought in Joe Flacco either, because if you're going to spend draft capital on a quarterback and then just immediately try and pivot off of him as soon as your starter's out for the season, to me, it's why'd you draft the quarterback? It didn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Maybe long-term development type of thing. Also, like, that thing where they put him in like with 20 minutes notice and no prep, they really tied his hand behind his back with that for sure. Got Grant Pachinga in the house. He says, I wonder if Philly fans are super confident they're winning this game.
No.
Well, Vegas isn't. Vegas has us favored, which is crazy.
Well, so funny enough, Vegas opened up with San Fran as 1.5 point favorites. When I checked earlier today, it's up to 3.
Wow. Okay. I saw 2.5. I didn't see 3. Wow.
Yeah, I saw 3 this morning.
So that's really 6 because it's 3 plus 3
Mm-hmm.
for your home field advantage.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting.
I can't say I'm 100% surprised by it, but I'm sure we'll get into it, in the show.
There you go. Haha, 48. Oh, he's 48. Yeah, see, I got you by a few years then. I thought so. You look younger. Jake, I would think the 10-1 Eagles are. Yeah, I mean, that's, on our sports radio today, 95.7 The Game. Steinmetz, he's on with Guru, and he was saying, well, the Eagles don't have to explain anything. They're 10-1, and the Niners are 8-3. So the Niners, if anything, have to prove that we belong after losing last year and then now losing more this year. But I would say that there's a difference in the games, and maybe this is a good time to address it, which is, the Niners, when we're playing well, we tend to just destroy teams or win by a pretty large margin. But the one thing the Niners don't do, and this is a concern for me, is win close games. And so if it is a close game, I'm favoring the Eagles to win. Especially if it's back and forth. Maybe if it's close. The only way I could see us winning a close game is if we were ahead by a lot and you guys, bridged the gap partially and didn't quite make it all the way back. Like
Yeah.
That's how I could see the Niners winning a close game. Otherwise, if it's close the whole time, I totally would bet on the Eagles.
I mean, for me, it's the Eagles have got to get off to a better start than what they have been. Is what it comes down to. You can't. How long are you going to play with fire in the first half and rely on Jalen Hurts to step up and be the leader that he is until that's going to come back to bite you. Yes, it's nice to beat good teams. It's nice to show that we can come from behind against good teams, but you can't do that to every good team. Eventually, that is going to come around to bite you. And just the way that they have started out very slow in some of these games is very concerning.
There you go. Yeah, no, it's interesting. And so I didn't realize this. Steven was saying that the Broncos, we said that 5 straight, but DTR got hurt and Walker had to play. I didn't realize that. So speaking of injuries, maybe that's a good segue. I mean, there's a lot of, I guess Fletcher Cox ruled out for the game.
Mm-hmm. I haven't seen the Eagles injury report like for the week so far, but I know Cox was out. Johnson was a late scratch. Zach Cunningham went to the locker room. He didn't come back. Jordan Davis was a little shaken up. I saw him come back in the game though, so they got a little dinged up. But
and then there's some question as to whether Goddard will return.
That would be awesome. I would be shocked.
Okay, so we don't think Goddard will be back.
I don't know, but
that's big because he's the second best blocking receiving tight end in the league after George Kittle, and the gap is not wide either. He's a hell of a player.
Yeah, I would actually say this game could come down to whether Goddard plays or not, because bridging the gap between your skill positions is going to be important for the Eagles. So, and the offense just genuinely looks better when Goddard's on the field.
And then also, if you're playing with, is it Driscoll as your backup right tackle?
Yeah, I think Johnson was sat for precautionary reasons. I think I sent out a tweet before the game.
You think he'll be back?
That said, Lane needs to sit against the Bills because there's bigger fish to fry coming up. Losing an out-of-conference game to the Bills or risking an injury to Lane Johnson in an out-of-conference game against the Bills when you've got the Niners and the Cowboys coming up next would have been an irresponsible decision. So I feel like that they did the right thing. We need him for both, so we didn't necessarily need him for what we had against the Bills.
There you go. We got Bryant Culp in the house. Let's smash the like button, everybody. Thank you, Bryant. I appreciate it. Also, we should let everybody know we are streaming to both channels. So if you're in TED Talks Ball, make sure you get over to BSing Sports and give Ryan a like and subscribe. Same thing for me. What was I going to say? So basically, also, if you're watching on a browser, you can open up 2 tabs and watch us both at the same time. Just make sure you mute one. That gives us more watch hours. It really helps us out. So thanks in advance for that, everybody. So Jacob is, and did I say it both ways? Like, I mean, obviously, if you're in BSing, make sure you get over to TED Talks Ball. Give me a like.
Yeah. Support both channels.
Both ways. Yeah. I don't for sure want to make sure I was not right for you. That's the main thing. I neglect myself. That's my own fault. So
hey man, you have me on your show. If you want to plug yourself, that is fine by me.
There you go. DTR did come back in the game. Interesting. Didn't realize. And they're saying Dallas has a good chance to play. Okay, Goddard. Okay, interesting. And then that was a smart move. Yeah. Well, we'll see. Turns out that Lane Johnson will be up against Bosa or Chase Young a lot this game. What did you think of the Chase Young pickup as an outsider?
I thought for sure once the word was he was leaving Washington, I thought for sure we were done seeing this guy. Turns out that we are not. We will definitely see him this weekend. We might see him in the playoffs, which it concerns me because having 2 elite pass rushers to deal with. Now, I think that the Eagles' tackles are very good tackles, but it's still the idea of, it's easier to face just Bosa than Bosa and Chase Young. So, I mean, it was an absolutely excellent pickup for the 49ers, easily worth a 3rd-round pick. I don't know if Chase Young signed any sort of contract extension yet or not.
No, he's under contract. So, and none of it's guaranteed, which is the killer part. So, it's just a crazy good situation for us.
Yeah, I saw the scenario like the 49ers can get their 3rd-round pick back in the offseason.
Assuming that he gets a high pay deal. Like, knock on wood, right? He can't get injured or flame out.
Mhm.
But assuming that he plays decently and gets a big deal, yeah, then we should get a third round comp pick if he walks.
Yeah.
And otherwise maybe he sticks around if he likes playing with Bosa, having the Buckeye bookends.
Well,
So
they can afford him because they have the luxury of Brock Purdy on the cheapest quarterback deal in the league by a substantial margin.
$800K a year. It's pretty ridiculous. And then, it was never really just Bosa anyway, because you probably remember Javon Hargrave has been here and he's
Yeah,
doing good things for us.
yeah, he's solid. It looked like he started out a little bit better and then kind of more so leveled out. As I won't say he's been playing bad, but it looks like he's kind of leveled out as the season goes on. But when he started, when Nick Bosa was starting to shake off the rust because he missed camp, he missed the preseason with the contract. Hargrave was taking over offensive lines. It was insane. He was playing, at maybe an even better level than he was as an Eagle. But, like I said, it looks like he's kind of leveled off to more of, normal Javon Hargrave play, not elite Javon Hargrave level play.
He's just saving it for Sunday. That's all.
I'm sure him and Kelsey will have some words for each other.
No doubt about it. Yeah, there's going to be some interesting matchups, obviously, along that line with Bosa and Chase Young against Lane Johnson and Mailata, who's playing really well. Obviously, Jason Kelsey, one of the best centers in the league for many, many years. How is the replacement for Sumalo at right guard?
Cam Jurgens. So funny enough, I didn't think Cam Jurgens was going to be as impactful as he was, but when he went on IR for 4 games, the Eagles' average yards per carry dropped from 4.3 to 3.1, I believe it was, in the 4 games that he missed. So he has been a very crucial part to the run game, not necessarily for the running backs, but you see a lot of Jalen Hurts' quarterback draws tend to be on the right guard's back hip. So he's elevated the running game, and it's very, very obvious that he's an important part to the run blocking offense. Pass blocking wise, he's a little bit smaller. He was kind of designed to take over for Jason Kelsey, who was also a little bit smaller. But when those mobile centers and guards get moving on the pulls and the run blocking, it's beneficial. So he's played pretty well. I don't know how long he'll hang around at guard. I don't know if he's the long-term solution at guard. I don't know if he'll move to center when Kelsey retires. Who knows when Kelsey's going to retire? But he's played solid. I would give him a solid B for his performance this year.
There you go. Okay, good to know. And I have a couple of Eagles buddies. One's a doctor, and one I know from like the recruiting world that I came from. And the recruiter was saying that he really thought the Eagles might pick up Shaq Leonard because the Colts just cut him out of the blue, and so that's sort of a segue. We can talk about that some, but also be just curious to know, like, I know you guys lost CJ Gardner-Johnson, was a pretty big loss for your defense. But like, if you were, spying to the 49ers, like, what would you tell us to attack on the Eagles defense?
I mean, it's honestly, you got to do what most teams have been doing this year is go directly at James Bradbury. I don't know what his issue has been this year, but he does not look the same that he has looked last year. He made a fantastic read on the Diggs route, and when he intercepted Josh Allen, that was probably vintage James Bradbury in cover 2, covering the flat there. But outside of that, I mean, Slay, you don't hear much of Slay, but that's because he doesn't get the ball thrown at him a lot. It seems like teams are attacking the slot, but that's obvious. As soon as we lost Devontae Maddox, we knew it was going to be hell in the slot. And then B, they're just going straight after James Bradbury. It's whether it's the penalties, whether it's just big completions allowed. He's taken a huge step back this year. I've been very disappointed in his performance this year.
How is linebacker play?
Solid. I would say we've gotten a good return on investment. It's not, Dre Greenlaw, we're not Fred Warner out here. But the fact that Zach Cunningham and Nick Morrow were picked up in the preseason for very cheap contracts, and both of these guys are playing very good football. Very sure tacklers. They've helped out the Eagles. They're now third best run defense in the NFL, so they've played a key part there. And I think they do okay in pass coverage. I mean, obviously, I'm worried about them covering George Kittle. That's going to be an issue. But with most linebackers, that's an issue. So I would say return on investment's not bad, but it's not a position that we heavily invest in anyway. So it's okay.
And then with safeties, you guys had that rookie last year who was pretty good. Now he's your cornerstone safety now, right?
I've Reed Blankenship is
Reed.
not. Yeah, Reed Blankenship is not, the coverage safety that CJ was. He's not going to be able to play center field, which is part of the reason why they brought Kevin Byard in to play that so-called center field in the safety position. But Blankenship is probably one of the most sure tacklers I've seen in the NFL. If he's one-on-one with somebody, it's a good chance that he's going to make the tackle in open space. And it's really been what's made him play at the level that he's played at this year. He'll make a good coverage play every now and then. He gets a little handsy in coverage. Some penalties kill him, but very sure tackler. So I think that that's a bonus to have on the back end, preventing some big plays that way.
There you go. Real quick, Bryant says DTR will shock the world. People will call him DDR in the playoffs. Bryant, elaborate. What is DDR? I don't know what DDR means. Is it like doctor? Is it like
I'm trying to figure it out too. I'm a little confused.
Tell us, spell it out for us, buddy. Tim Hawkins says attack the middle of the field, I think is what he's saying for Eagles defense. Private Society Kennels, first time seeing them here, but welcome. It says Hassan Reddick is a dirty player. I don't know about that. I would say that, he went for the ball. When he hit Purdy's arm, but that's what you do when you're going for the ball. You hit the wrist, you hit the. I don't think Hassan Reddick. Maybe they're talking about something else besides the NFC champ. I'm myopic, right?
I don't know what else they're referencing.
But I never felt like he was particularly dirty in that play. I mean, no more than DeMarcus Lawrence doing the same thing to. It's kind of interesting that, we had this same injury, not only same injury, but same surgery to Purdy and Nick Mullins, and they're both away games, both at the Link and at Jerry's World, and they're both guys coming off the right edge. It was Hassan Reddick, obviously, and DeMarcus Lawrence in Dallas, and it makes me wonder, like, what do you think about this for a theory that, like, when linemen get beat, they'll yell something like fire, or there's some
yeah, there's a code word for it.
Safe word that they scream so the quarterback knows to look. But like in the noise of Jerry's World and the noise of the Link, like maybe Mullins and Purdy didn't hear it. And so maybe that contributed to their injuries. And it's just interesting that they're the only two NFL quarterbacks who have had this UCL brace plus UCL repair plus internal brace surgery. Jake Delhomme had UCL surgery, but it was the full Tommy John reconstruction. What's the other word? Replacement surgery, where you're putting in like a cadaver ligament instead. But so that's, I always used to be tying it into like what's going on now. Like, all right, so a lot of people are saying 49ers, this is our only chance to get home field advantage throughout the playoffs, is beat the Eagles. And then, of course, we have to count on the Cowboys beating the Eagles. But if that does happen, then we're in first place because of the head-to-head, winning this Sunday, if that can happen. And I always used to be like, well, home field advantage, yeah, it's great. But I'd rather be rested, healthy, and hot going into the playoffs. And looking back on those two injuries, I'm like, oh, maybe there's something to this. Plus, obviously, you get the bye, right? That's the huge thing. Only one team gets a bye anymore. So being number one has a huge advantage. But anyway, I've been talking a lot. Why don't you jump in?
Yeah, so you actually kind of segue into one of the points I was going to make. And this is a huge game for the 49ers in the sense that if the Eagles win, it's essentially the road to the Super Bowl in the NFC is going to go through Philadelphia, right? But there's a very real possibility that if the 49ers win, Cowboys following that, and we've already beaten the Cowboys this year. So myself, I expect to split with the Cowboys every year, right? I don't think the Cowboys are a bad team. I don't think that they're necessarily in the same tier as the 49ers and the Eagles are. I think that's the top tier of the NFC. And then I think it's the Lions and the Cowboys in like the tier 1B kind of. But I expect to split with the Cowboys every year. So I think that this is a huge game for the 49ers in the sense if they win and get that head-to-head tiebreaker, and we've got Seattle after that. Now, I know you guys have, it's kind of shocked me because I don't think divisional games, follow logic, but the 49ers have kind of pounded Seattle the last 2 years in a way that kind of shocks me. So, but they could come out and shock the Eagles too, especially in Seattle. So there's real potential for a shakeup here. But if the Eagles win this game, the 49ers and Cowboys are going to have to rely on the Eagles pretty much to lose 3 of their remaining 5 games, and that's just not. Especially when the Giants and Cardinals are 3 of them, it's not a realistic expectation.
Not gonna happen. No, the way I laid it out is the only way that makes sense. No doubt about it. So they're just talking about Hassan doing the horse collar tackle on Josh Allen that didn't get called.
I was shocked it didn't get called.
Yeah, and that is somewhat dirty, but it's also just sometimes that's the only thing you can grab. And again, if he did it a lot, maybe I'd say it, but I don't know of him doing it repeatedly. You might know better than me, but I still am not really going to call that dirty.
I feel like that's horse collar, unless you said you're a repeat offender, it's kind of one of those things that, like, if it just happens sometimes, like these players are not
grabbing for anything you can get.
Yeah, you're not stopping to think for half a second, oh man, where am I going to tackle him? It's the same argument with the hip drop thing, right? Like, my whole mindset is to get this guy to the ground, right? I'm not going to waste half a second trying to figure out how to do that, especially with a guy like Josh Allen. You wait half a second and he's gone.
Yeah, a lot of people said that Jimmy Ward was dirty on Pollard last year in the divisional round when he fell hip dropped on, and I sort of said it when the guy hip dropped on Jimmy G when he broke his foot in the Dolphins game last year too. So I don't know. I could see why people would say it. I'm not going to say either one's a smoking gun, but that's Private Society Kennels was the one who mentioned that. Or explain like that's sort of the impetus for the not the NFC Championship as much. So yeah, there we go. DTR will be dancing all the way through the playoffs. All right. Dance
Revolution. Yeah. I saw
that. That's what the DDR was. Okay. And I was thinking also like Dancing with the Stars too, but that's not DDR.
I mean, that'd be like, DTR, could you imagine like if something like that happened? Brock Purdy does what he does last year, and then DTR comes in and kind of does the same thing with Cleveland. How nuts! Like, we barely have. I don't remember a time ever where what Brock Purdy did last year happened, and then to maybe have something like that happen again, like that'd be insane.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. Their defense is good. They were on a historic pace after 5 games, but then I pointed out that like 3 of the 5 teams they had played were like 32nd in yards gained, 30th. So the Bengals were 32nd in yards gained at that point. The Steelers were 30th, and I think it was the Giants or the Titans were 26th. I think it was the Titans were 26th. And I was like, in the Niners, we were missing. CMC got dinged up, Debo went out, and Trent Williams went out. So, and I'll say Purdy, I don't think Purdy is a good wet weather quarterback. This is something to keep an eye on for Sunday. Watch that weather report. I saw 30% chance for rain last I saw. It's a concern for me because he played poorly against the Browns in the rain, and he played poorly in the first half against the Seahawks in the wild card round last year. I was there at Levi's, and it rained in the first half. And then the sun came out and it dried out, and he absolutely torched the Seahawks in the second half, including a drop TD by Ayuk, where it could have been even worse.
Yeah, I would say the biggest flaw I noticed in Brock Purdy's game last year, and I haven't kept up with it a ton this year, so I'm hoping you could elaborate on it, is he clearly had issues throwing to his left last year when he was rolling out to his left.
To his right.
Or to his right, yeah.
Yeah, and rolling left, throwing right was abominable.
Yeah, and obviously replacing, and the Notre Dame fan in me hurts to say this, replacing Mike McGlinchey, seems to have helped the offensive line, but it also looks like Purdy's not putting himself in that situation. He's scrambling a little bit differently. Maybe you can elaborate. Have you seen improvements in that area in his game?
He's definitely thrown some to the right now. Not necessarily rolling left and throwing right. Actually, yeah, he did that too. Yeah, in fact, there's a touchdown against the Jags, or was it the Bucks? it was recently, it was in the last 3 games, where he was rolling right and he threw back to his left across his body, and there were 4 defenders and Kittle and Ayuk there, and Ayuk got the TD. I want to say it was the Jags, and yeah, it was the Jags. You know how I know? Because he had thrown across his body, rolling right back to his left twice against the Bengals when we lost. And I was like, and I was there, and we're like, no. Oh, yes. Oh, good catch, Kittle. And then, oh, no. Oh, yes. TD catch, CMC. But we're also like, dude, you can't keep doing this because you don't have a strong arm, you know, and
Yeah.
everybody tells you don't do it. But then he did it against the Jags with Ayuk. So he's kind of 3 for 3 doing it. Especially, like you said, the worst is rolling left, throwing right. Yeah, there were definitely some in 2022, like in the Raiders game. He threw a pick and another one that could have been picked that was batted down doing that. And that was when I was saying, like, you know, limited arm, limited height, limited top speed. And all of those things I think are still true. But, boy, is he throwing some nice deep balls now. And so it's really hard to fault. It's like, yeah, all those things are true. And, yeah, it's starting to look like it may not matter, especially – like they say, if all the Avengers are healthy, right? If you got Debo and Ayuk and Kittle and CMC and Juszczyk, and even I'll throw Jennings in there, it's just an embarrassment of riches when you look at our weapons. And I've been saying ever since we got CMC, we got the best group of weapons in football, and I still stand firmly on that. And because CMC is clearly the best running back in football. I mean, not only a great runner leading and rushing yards, but he's such a great receiver. He has this incredible ability to always be as close as possible to the chains, at the same time be as far as possible from a defender. And so he's just this perfect outlet guy. Whenever everything goes to hell, like, throw it to CMC and he'll almost always get you that first or as close as you can get without getting near a defender. And it's you know, and also the first guy rarely ever gets him because he's so quick. So
how concerned are you about his workload, though? I mean,
very extremely. I have been all season. A lot of us have been talking about it all season. Yeah, and then he got dinged up against the Browns. Yeah, and just Kyle, there's no, like, you know, they asked Kyle, Grant Cohn, one of our big reporters, very controversial, because he's the non-homer, right? He's the guy who asks the tough questions, the guy who's, you know, always looking for the negative. And he asked Kyle, why haven't you played J.P. Mason, Jordan Mason more? And or when will you? And he's like, I'll play him when CMC and Elijah Mitchell are injured, and that's when I'll play him. You know, like, don't expect it before then, essentially. And most of us would love to see much more of a rotation, much more, especially late in games where you're up by a ton of points. Like, get CMC the heck out of there. But Kyle is like, he's been burned on some of these, you know, late game comebacks, and he's just like, I'll be damned. It seems like he's like, I'll be damned if I'll let that happen. So he tends to just ride with CMC till the wheels fall off, and hopefully that doesn't happen. But it's hard to imagine that it
won't. This
was
my other question: is how concerned are you about your pass defense with Hufanga being out now?
Yeah, well, Hufanga was never a great cover guy. He's a ball hawk, but you know, you can be a ball hawk without being that great in coverage. He's a really good blitzer and really good tackler, big thumper, even if sometimes he falls off tackles, but he always brings the lumber.
He's big for a safety, if I'm not mistaken. He's like 6'1", 200 now. No, he's a little smaller.
Yeah, he's like 5'11", 190, I think.
Okay.
Well, maybe 195. But definitely not 200. He's definitely a little undersized, but he's a hard hitter, very instinctive, not really very 4.6 speed. But then you go and you explain Jair Brown, our first overall pick, who was 87th overall in the 2023 draft. You explain him the exact same way. Ball hawk, not good in coverage, big hitter, great blitzer, just and I was worried about Hufanga because he made All Pro last year. I'll tell you, I may have told you when we talked first. I never agreed with him being an All Pro, maybe Pro Bowl, but I was talking to someone I respect a lot, and they said, Ted, if there's anyone on defense who we could afford to get injured, it's Hufanga. Not just because of Jair Brown being very similar, but just all of our other players. I guess it is. There's no good backup for other players the way there is for Hufanga. So, Jair Brown came in against the Bucks, and they went right at him. They got like a 41-yard big bomb, against him. But then, he played a little bit better. I think he gave up maybe another catch. But then he got the the game-sealing interception. And I'm trying to remember what happened in the Seahawks game, but there was something he did well. Maybe it was another fumble recovery or interception in the Seahawks game. And because it was Lenore who got the interception, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, bottom line is he had a pretty good game, but it's one game, so it's really hard to say. But I think Hufanga was overrated. I'll just say that.
Okay.
I think Hufanga was overrated. I think, the same way I say that Purdy isn't elite, that
doesn't mean you're not good. It just means, yeah.
I think that he's a product of his weapons and Kyle in our run game and CMC. Those things are all elite. Purdy, maybe, but I'm not ready to say it yet. And for the evidence, all you need to look at Jimmy G last year, where he was pretty much on par with Purdy. And Purdy's better this year than he was last year. But you look at Jimmy G as a Raider, and he's leading the league in interceptions with one less game. And also leading the league and, one of the fewest guys throwing TDs as well. So he's like maxing out the interceptions and minimizing the TDs. And now he's probably never be a starter again. So I think Purdy was a little bit better last year. And I think he's a fair amount better than that this year. But I still think it holds true. If you take him out of the system, he's not going to. And honestly, we talked backstage about you were kind of critical of Jalen Hurts at first, and now he's won you over. But honestly, Jalen Hurts has one of the better surrounding casts too, right? I mean, if we're being honest, I think we have better weapons, but your guys' weapons are not far behind. And, I don't think, your OC is nearly as good as Kyle, but your O-line is arguably the best in the league. So
don't poke that OC bear. We'll be here for an hour, and I'll be cursing out Brian Johnson, hoping he sees the show. Oh, man.
Yeah, I know people were unhappy with him. But they were talking about that today on the radio as well, about what was it that he did?
Nothing. To me, it's incredible. I would blame, I don't think when something bad happens or something good happens, it's not any one particular person's fault, right? The Eagles just start a little sluggish sometimes. But man, the play calling to start the game is just so suspect. Like, we've got AJ Brown, we've got Devonta Smith, we've got Dallas Goedert, we've got DeAndre Swift. And our game plan is to throw screen passes to 85-year-old fossil Julio Jones. It's like, what are we doing, man? Like, do we even care about getting the guys that can do something with the football? The screen passes have got to go away from this team. Like, you don't look at the Eagles and go, man, we have Tyreek Hills on our team, or Deebo Samuels, guys that can take the ball at the line of scrimmage, make people miss, and go 80 yards south. The Eagles don't have guys like that. They have route technicians in Devonta Smith. They have deep ball threats in A.J. Brown. We have got to get away from these screen passes. It is such a killer for this offense.
There you go. Yeah, no doubt about it. We had some interesting talk. Mark Graves in the house. He said right now limited losses. I think that was in the limited arm, limited height, limited top speed, limited losses. They're saying all QBs struggle in the rain, but no, some struggle more than others, especially ones typically with small hands. And Brock Purdy only has 9.25-inch hands, which are not particularly big for a quarterback. Tim Hawkins says CMC is the best weapon in football. And yeah, and so all those things elevate Brock. And I would say it's the same thing on our defense for Jair Brown and or Hufanga. In that, you got Bosa. He's the highest paid defender in the NFL. You've got Fred, who for a minute was the highest paid inside linebacker, and Shaq Leonard is just a fraction more anyway, maybe $500K more a year or something like that. It's like 18.5 and 19 or 18 and 18.5, whatever it is. It's a minimal. They're potato, right? You got Hargrave, who's well paid and deserves it. You've got Jamar Chase, who was a number 2 overall pick, and starting to get back towards, being 100% again after his ACL. Armstead is very highly paid, maybe a little overpaid. But But and Dre Greenlaw, who's probably underpaid, who's probably almost as good as Fred, and probably deserves one of those 14, 15, $16 million contracts. And then Mooney Ward is highly paid, $13 million a year, but he's starting to look like it again. Especially, it's really interesting in the Seahawks game. I don't know how many Philly fans saw it or not. I mean, well, it's on Thanksgiving, so probably a lot of people saw it, right? This is national televised, but it's just really interesting to see the tale of two Charvarius Wards, where last year in the wild card game, DK Metcalf absolutely destroyed Mooney Ward. I think he had over 150 yards receiving, a touchdown or two, just owned him, torched him, made him burnt toast. And then at Thanksgiving, Mooney Ward was pretty much locked down against him. And so it's crazy to see the difference. But I do think that, AJ Brown is a much better receiver than DK Metcalf. So DK is a physical specimen, but AJ Brown is one of the best in the biz, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that they're the same kind of prototype of receiver, big body, use them downfield, but I would say AJ Brown's just better at it.
I think he's probably a better route runner. He probably can't get in his head as easily. DK is kind of a big baby in a lot of ways. I mean, part of that's I hate the Seahawks, but I feel like I can be pretty objective. Even love a team like the Niners or hate a team like the Seahawks, I can still say I respect the Seahawks are a good team, and I can say there are weaknesses on the Niners. So
the Seahawks had an opportunity to really shake up the NFC, right? Because they beat Detroit earlier in the year, so they could have made some havoc. If they maybe steal one from the 49ers, if they beat the Eagles, they still have to play Dallas. I'm not saying that they're in the running for a top seed or anything, but the Seahawks could really play spoiler for somebody.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Could be us, because we played them Thanksgiving, we play y'all this Sunday, and then we come back to Levi's a week from Sunday, and it's the Seahawks again, and then we have the Cards and then the Ravens. So it's like 5 bird teams in a row. But Seahawks at Levi's could be, I expect it to be a lot tougher than they were in Seattle. They have a good team. They have good weapons. Geno's a solid quarterback. They were also missing Kenneth Walker on Thanksgiving. That's a big. Charbonnet is good for a rookie, but Kenneth Walker he's a stud. He's one of the better running backs, I feel like. Yeah, Seahawks are a little bit of because especially with that secondary, they've got Witherspoon, and they've got Woolen.
Yeah,
I think they're calling Woolen Spoon is what they're calling the combo. They obviously have Diggs is a hell of a free safety, and we all know Jamal Adams. He's a little bit overrated and overpaid, but he's still really good.
I said earlier in the show, to me, I'm a firm believer in divisional games. Don't follow any sort of logic. You see each other twice, in your case, 3 times a year. It's just you play each other too often every single year. Something weird's going to happen. Not necessarily the better team has to win the game, but I am shocked at how badly the 49ers have been beaten up on the Seahawks the last 2 years. Not to say that obviously the 49ers aren't the better team, but like I said, logic doesn't necessarily come into play sometimes when it's those divisional games.
Well, and it didn't when we were the better team a lot of times, and Russ went 17-4 against us. So I think that's it. Until proven otherwise, I'm saying it was Russ Wilson. He just his best stuff was always against the Niners, or some of his best stuff. And so that's the only way I can explain it. Because we were 3-0 against them last year. Now we handled them. Yeah, some people, my dad, when we were watching the game, and some people I was with and talking to were starting to get nervous, and I was like, maybe I'll get nervous when they score an offensive touchdown, but not till then.
Yeah.
Because our defense just seemed to have their number there on Thanksgiving. So unlike, like I said, where DK was torching us in the walk, and there were some close ones to DK where he just stepped out and it could have been a big gainer down the left sideline. And so we'll see what happens. But Randy loves Purdy, and so he was, he's playing the devil's advocate.
Yeah.
Was he that great in Carolina? He was. Yeah, they just had nobody else around him. And he was saying who is not a product of their weapons. But yeah, that's true. But nobody else has these same weapons, right? So yeah, you're not lining it up without weapons. But you look at Mahomes, all he has is Kelsey. You look at Josh Allen, all he has is Stephon Diggs. And you look at our teams, we have 2 and 3 elite weapons and better running backs and better running games. With Swift and CMC and their O-line. And even though our O-line isn't nearly as good as the Eagles, we have a good scheme where the zone blocking scheme works well for our finesse O-linemen, and they open up big holes. So not through brute force, but through quickness and angles. So, and getting to the second level. So, yeah, but I get it. Everybody is a product of their weapons. And yeah, I always say, QBs need at least decent protection and at least reliable weapons. But, Brock Purdy and Jalen Hurts have a lot more than that. I'd say Tua is kind of in that conversation too, of very blessed with great weapons.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, but I think you hit the nail on the head. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. Like I know Dalton Kincaid's kind of starting to come onto the scene, but he's a rookie. Outside of that, for years it was just Allen and Diggs, and that was the only way they were ever going to beat you. So I'm kind of surprised it took the Bills, this many years to essentially collapse, right? Like I never thought the Bills were a particularly great offensive team anyway, because if you looked at them, not to get off the Eagles 49ers topic, but if you look at that team and the way that it's built, unless Josh Allen's having a Herculean performance against a good team, they're not built to beat good teams. They just don't have guys outside of Diggs that can really scare a team and take over a game. So,
and the poor Bills got ravaged by injury. They lost Tre'Davious White early on, and then Matt Milano and Daquan Jones in London against the Jags.
Von Miller started the year on PUP.
So
they got
he came back, but it was after Trey White was gone, and so they got ravaged on that defense by injury. So that's brutal. We got Bash, 49er Minded. He's I do Ballin' with Bash and Ted with him every Friday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. Says Purdy is 3-0 versus Seattle. Yeah, Jimmy got the first win last year. Actually, yeah, obviously it was Jimmy. I was just trying to think of the details of it, but I'm blanking on it right this second. He says he feels special. I was kind of working my way up from the bottom because I got behind on the chat. And so sometimes it's easier to work your way up when you get 500. Sorry, I'm not going to let that score. The season started. I'm not been given the score. What's going to be? I'm just going to leave it. Let the cards fall where they may go. Niners. Do you have a score prediction for the game, Ryan?
I do. I do think it's going to be a little low scoring. I got 21-17 Eagles. And to be 100% honest with you, if this game was in Levi, I would pick the 49ers to win. But truthfully, it comes down to, we've seen the Eagles look horrendous in the first half. They're getting absolutely destroyed in the eye test by teams, and then they just win. Like you've seen the Chiefs sacked Hurts 5 times and ran the ball against, at the time, the best run defense in the NFL for 140 yards. They lost. Josh Allen and Dak Prescott threw for almost 350 yards apiece against the Eagles. They both lost. Jalen Hurts was pressured more in the Bills game than any game in his career, and they lost. So until somebody beats the Eagles, like puts together a complete game and beats the Eagles in every facet, I'm going to pick the Eagles, because that's who they are. You have to be on your A game across the board to beat them. Can't be good in one area and lacking in another. And the 49ers, and I said I had this game circled on my calendar for this reason, the 49ers are the one team that they are good everywhere, and they can bring an A game at every level of football game. So even coaching. It's scary as an Eagles fan, because this game means a lot, and as far as the 1 seed goes.
There you go. Yeah, before the season, I circled Cowboys, Bengals, and Eagles as the 3 Super Bowl contenders that we would face this season, not knowing that Joe Burrow would be playing with an injury most of the season and then get injured. But he was fine against us and tore us to shreds. I think he was 28 of 32, 3 TDs, and just looked like super elite. Like after the game, Kyle Shanahan famously said about Brock Purdy this offseason that he is the real deal. And I tweeted after the game, I said, Joe Burrow is the real deal. That's what it looks like, folks. And he also is gifted with great weapons, obviously, with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd, probably the best wide receiver 3 in the NFL. And Mixon is a hell of a back. But people are always like, why is everybody so hard on Brock? Why does everybody have these high expectations for Brock? I'm like, it's two things. One, just like I said, Kyle said Purdy's the real deal. He also said we're 2 win now to develop Trey Lance. So I'm like, you better effing win now then, bro. I mean, that sets expectations sky high. And we're like, he hasn't even played a full season. I'm like, I don't care. Now he is Kyle did it to him. So with those two things for me, that's what did it, where I'm like, okay. And I will say he doesn't have to win the Super Bowl for me to say that he's been a success. Like, obviously, if he's just balling out and everybody gets injured or like,
Yeah, I think the whole quarterbacks have to win Super Bowl narratives is super overrated. One team can win a Super Bowl every year. It's not like, it's so hard to get there, right? Like what Tom Brady did, I think kind of set an unrealistic expectation of what elite quarterback play actually means. Like that was a historic type of run that Tom Brady's actually played in 17.5% of all the Super Bowls in NFL history. Like that's an insane stat. And I think it's just really set an unrealistic expectation for what elite quarterback play is supposed to be. It's so hard to win a Super Bowl. I think winning one, my dad told me years and years and years ago when the Phillies won the World Series in 2008, he was like, cherish the moment because it may never happen again. And I kind of laughed at him because the Phillies were, looking like the cream of the crop on the rising. And it's 2023. As a Philly fan, I'm still waiting for another World Series ring. So it's kind of the same thing, as a football fan. Like, these dominant runs that teams go on are just so hard to do.
No doubt about it. This is a funny comment here from Timothy Brandt.
Yeah.
How did the Eagles start a game with 3 straight passes? I got into trouble this last offseason because I said he sabotaged Trey Lance because he didn't start the game with 3 straight passes. He started the game with 3 straight drives with all passes. So it was like 9 passes at least, maybe more. And I'm like, we're a run-first team, man. You can't. And not only that, he's calling run fakes, play action. Like everybody's like, oh, well, you don't have to run well to have play action be effective. I'm like, but you have to try to run. You have to have a run attempt. You can go for a loss or 0 yards. That's fine. Then at least the defense will honor the run. But if you're not running, they're not biting on the play fake, my man. It's so simple.
Yeah, that's what cracks me up, man. Like if you see so many play action passes like early in a game, it's like, why even try? You didn't even run the ball yet. So I would rather, get beat on a run play the first play of the game than get beat on a 75-yard touchdown. I'm not biting on a run fake first play of the game.
There you go. Raised Wiki Up said that Hufanga sets a tone in the secondary that they don't have or don't know if they'll have yet. And that could be true. Hufanga is a big hitter. So hopefully we won't miss him much, but like I said, 1 game is not enough to know. Sorry, my son just got up from his nap and came to visit. So I'm gonna let him say hi real quick. Can you say go Niners?
Go Niners!
Yeah, nice, buddy. Get him. That's Ford. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, so I mean, I know there's a lot of 49ers fans in the crowd. Anybody got any questions they want to ask me? I can see your comments. So, any thoughts that I have on this game? While Ted steps away to take care of his family. Open to anything, really.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. I asked the chat if they had any questions for me while you were gone.
Our childcare went to Disneyland over the weekend and extended their stay. So we don't. That's my wife is on zone defense right now with the 10-week-old and Ford who you just met. So she has her hands full. God bless her. Thank you, Maggie, for letting me do this. I appreciate it. So let's see here. Maybe I'll start at the bottom again because I'm sure I'm far behind. So is Swift bailing out Hurts? Yeah, Swift. Yeah, he's better than Sanders, don't you think?
Absolutely. I like people were so flabbergasted when Miles Sanders got usurped going into the playoffs for his starting job, and Kenneth Gainwell was getting most of the touches at the end of the year last year. I'm like, why? Like, I could run for 4 yards a carry behind this offensive line. Miles Sanders isn't doing anything that his longest run last year was like 35 yards. Like, he didn't do anything that absolutely impressed me last year. He was easily replaceable. I think Swift, not to this level, but when you watch him run, some of the runs that he has kind of gives me Shady McCoy flashbacks, like some of the best 4 yard runs we've ever seen kind of thing. So I think Swift is absolutely a better weapon and a huge upgrade compared to Miles Sanders. Now, whether they retain him in the offseason because he is on a contract year is yet to be seen, but it's not like Howie Roseman has an extensive history of paying running backs anyway.
There you go. Yeah, no doubt about it. Interesting. Bash said, do you find Nick Sirianni annoying? Apparently Bash does.
So I understand why that's such a popular take, because Nick Sirianni is absolutely a guy that could rub people the wrong way, but he is the embodiment of Philadelphia. I think we need to take a moment to kind of recognize what Nick Sirianni's doing. Yeah, you can talk about how good the roster is, how loaded the roster is, Jalen Hurts this, Jalen Hurts that. I have never seen in my lifetime, and Ted, you've been watching football a lot longer than me, so maybe you'll be able to make this reference, a team go to the Super Bowl, in the offseason lose both coordinators, 8 starters from their defense from a Super Bowl team, and then come back in the next season and they're once again the Super Bowl favorites. Like, to be able to turn over your coaching staff like that and implement new schemes on both sides of the ball with pretty much a fresh start on defense is hard to do. And they're still winning football games. So I think some level we have to give Nick Sirianni his props as coach. Yeah, he doesn't call plays like Kyle Shanahan. He doesn't design these fancy schemes like Kevin O'Connell, but he keeps the locker room together. And there you could argue that there's no team that plays harder for their coach than the Philadelphia Eagles.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect you to say he was annoying.
I can really 100% see how Nick Sirianni annoys the hell out of people. I totally get it, but he's the embodiment of Philadelphia, so that's just kind of how it is.
There's that one meme of him, like,
that
everybody hates, but hey, if he's your guy, you got it's kind of like me with the Warriors and Draymond Green. He's my favorite player, but I could see why everybody hates him. Pat Bev, same type of player. They get under your skin.
Yeah.
But hey, if he's on your team, you love him.
I think enemies like that are good in the NFL, no matter, CJ Gardner-Johnson, he's super annoying when he's not. I know 49ers fans think that he's a dread when he's not on your team.
And it was before he was an Eagle, too, because I hated him.
Yeah, he's such a jaw jacker with the Saints, too. But, I mean, when he's on
your
team.
Him, I would say, was a little dirty.
I think CJ Gardner-Johnson towed the line a little bit. I would admit that. But, like, even a guy like Debo, Debo does some trash talking, but, like, I don't hate him for it. I don't think anything. I think enemies like that in the NFL are cool. I think that it brings a different kind of vibe to the NFL. I'm okay with that.
Now that it came up, it's the second time, well, it didn't come up, but I'll bring it up, that CJ Gardner-Johnson went to the Lions, and that came up. So today on the radio, they were saying they thought that it might, and it kind of goes along with what I was saying earlier about being healthy, rested, and hot, maybe better than the number 1 seed, but they were saying that the number 2 seed might be better because you play the Lions first, compared to if you're the number 1 seed, you play the Cowboys or the Eagles first, or you play us or the Cowboys first, which, is not exactly ideal. Granted, you do get the bye week, which helps. But anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting. Thought I'd never really looked at it. I just didn't even realize that was a thing. And of course, things can change between now and then too. But as of now, they felt like it might be a better deal to be the number 2 seed than the number 1 seed because of
it's that. An interesting perspective, and it makes some sort of sense. But I mean, I would rather play like me as an Eagles fan, I'd rather play the Cowboys, who have yet to beat a team over 500 this year, than the Lions. I think the Lions are a better football team than the Cowboys are.
Lions have definitely a better O-line, that's for damn sure. Got Jason Nyer Smash Massey in the house and Talofa Faithful. Hello, Faithful. Welcome. Check out Nyers Faithful Radio. That's his channel. He's a creator as well. A lot of non-Eagles fans do.
And like I said, I totally see why.
Figured, yeah.
But I love
Sanders now losing his starting job. There you go. And I think Swift didn't even play the first game. There you go. That's true. Elliott's a good kicker. He was. We were talking about elite kickers recently, and we were talking about obviously Tucker from the Ravens, and then Elliott's name came up pretty quickly. Somebody mentioned Bass, who of course missed one Sunday, but I think other than that, he's been pretty good. And then obviously the Bengals, the rookie phenom kicker, McPherson, is that his name?
Yeah, McPherson.
But did you have a list of elite kickers? Would you say that's it?
Funny enough, I do think McPherson's a good kicker, but Jake Elliott was stolen off the Bengals practice squad. That's how we acquired him.
No way.
But I had the same conversation with somebody else earlier. I think Jake Elliott, and this is going to sound really homerish of me, needs to be in the conversation with Justin Tucker. When you are 9 for 9 in your career from 50 yards or greater to tie or win a football game in the fourth quarter, that's a different level of clutch. 59 yards in the rain, like, come on, man, that's ridiculous, And we've seen
Guru on the radio today. Guru said to me that's like a 70-yarder, 59 in the rain.
Yeah, that's it. And he made it by like 7 or 8 yards. He crushed it.
Wow.
Yeah, so to me, I think the conversation should be had. Obviously, Justin Tucker's been doing it a lot longer than Jake Elliott has. So I'm not saying that we need to, take Justin Tucker out of his number one spot. But I think the conversation for a tier is it can be had.
James Durnall coming to us from across the pond. James, it's getting late over there, buddy. It's like, what is it? It's got to be like 12:30. Unless they didn't fall back. What did we just do? We just fell back. So it might even be a 9-hour difference now. It might even be 1:30 over there in GMT land. But he says news on Johnson and Cox. So
yeah, like I said, I think Johnson was held out more so because the game against Buffalo doesn't necessarily mean as much as the 49ers, the Cowboys, the Seahawks, being that it's out of conference. But I think that, there might be some concern with Fletcher Cox, but we'll hear more about it throughout the week.
There you go. Rick says, I don't know why other teams are worried about us. Don't worry about us. They should worry about their own team. Go Niners. Oh, they worry about the best teams. Everybody worries about the best teams. So whether it's the Eagles or the Niners or the Cowboys or the Lions, that's who everybody worries about because nobody else really matters in the NFC, in my opinion. I don't know. Do you have anybody else? Vikings? Would you Josh Dobbs believer?
No, I'm not. I think there's a reason he was a 4th-round pick. I think there's a reason that he was traded away from Pittsburgh. I think there was a reason he was traded away from Cleveland. He's kind of started out hot with both those teams. If you look at his very early on with Arizona and very early on with Minnesota, he's had some good games and then he's kind of, slipped out of it a little bit. So now I think he's fine for the Vikings. I think he can help them reach the playoffs, but ultimately the Vikings are not, some kind of deep run contender in my eyes. I think it's clearly the 1A is the Eagles and the 49ers and the 1B is the Lions and the Cowboys and then everybody else. That's the way that I look at it.
I'm with you there. How many times the Eagles and Cowboys and Giants, you guys play each other so many times? It's like the Twilight Zone. Yeah, that's because they're division rivals.
Twice a year.
Twice a year, just like us and the Seahawks and Rams. And Cards, I guess, if you want to include that. They just seem to be tanking now. Now we're talking. Oh, puppy. The question is the Eagle fan right there, live and Tapper panel. Can you answer that? Why they cannot sweep the Cowboys or Giants, or they always have problems annoying?
They swept the Commanders this year. They swept the Giants last year. And like I said, I think Dallas is still a fairly good team. But I don't think that, in the grand scheme of things, that they're as good of a team as Eagles. Like I said, divisional games don't tend to follow logic. I mean, Rams were 0-2 against the 49ers until the NFC Championship game a couple years ago.
Yeah, there you go.
There's no logic to divisional games.
No, for a long time it was rock, paper, scissors. Seahawks own Niners, Niners own Rams, Rams own Seahawks. But now we just own everybody in the division right now. Well, we'll see. I mean, the Rams game might be interesting because it's week 18, so there's a chance that it may be meaningless, and we may not sweep them because we don't need to. But I don't know. We'll see.
Mm-hmm.
That's unlikely given our scenario right now. Dobbs is a sneaky good QB. He played well against us, I will say. I remember watching that game and thinking, like, I don't know that I'd bring Kyler back, but I'm not a big Kyler Murray fan. So
I think that Dobbs, like I said, Dobbs is okay. I think he's fine for the Vikings for what they're trying to do, but I think they bring Kirk Cousins back, so they're just looking for somebody to bridge the gap this year.
James Dornall, shots fired against Bryant Culp, who loves Jake Moody. He said, Bryant, you'd like a plank of wood if it got named the kicker. That's mean. What else should we cover? As far as weaknesses for the 49ers, right tackle is a little bit of a weakness. So is right guard, but it's interesting. Aaron Banks had turf toe, our left guard, and we put Feliciano in there, who's the longtime Bill and Giants O lineman, and he did well. He did real well. And then Burford, our right guard, got like a mystery knee injury in the middle of the week and didn't play. And we put Feliciano in against the Seahawks. I think he did pretty well. I think he had a penalty, but I think other than that, he played pretty well. But like, I don't know, McKivitz at right tackle. He's a decent pass blocker, but not a very good run blocker. So you mentioned McGlinchey. And yeah, I mean, McKivitz is a step up in pass protection for sure, but McGlinchey is a hell of a run blocker, and I don't think McKivitz will ever be athletic like that. So that's one of our weaknesses. People say like that we're a pick your poison offense because of these weapons, right? The Avengers offense or whatever. But I always just say, like, if you're going to like deal with this poisonous snake, you cut the head off. And so, pressure Purdy, and you can limit our offense that way, as you guys saw last year in the NFC Championship game. And then even if he didn't get injured, I think there still would have been issues. And then nickel corner has been a real weak spot for us, Isaiah Oliver. But now we've moved Lenore from the boundary over and then put Ambry Thomas in at the boundary, and he's done pretty well. For someone who was kind of riding the bench. He was a third-round draft pick a couple years back out of Michigan. He's a good man cover guy. Anyway, and another issue we had was we were playing a lot of kind of almost quasi-prevent defense, like corners way off the ball. And a lot of our corners, especially Charvarius Ward, is like a press corner. And if you put him off the ball, you put him at a big disadvantage if you can't check the guy right at the line of scrimmage, the wide receiver right at the line of scrimmage. Hufanga might be a weakness. One thing that came up in my earlier show today was there might be an issue with gap integrity on our pass rush. I don't know how good we are at mush rushing. I know Hargrave, I saw it more on run plays where he comes shooting through the backfield and all of a sudden they just run right out the gap he came from. And Jamar Chase, I know a lot of Commanders fans were panning him saying, oh, he was going for stats and not being a team player. And that's what a stat player would do. They'd be going for the sack, not mush rushing to keep Hurts contained. So those might be some areas that the Eagles can attack. We'll see.
So I have an interesting stat for you, and I was doing this research earlier in the week, and I don't know if you know this. The 49ers have the second best passer rating allowed on the road in the NFL, and it's actually 20 points better on the road than it is at Levi.
I did not know that.
Yeah, them and the Ravens are the only two teams with a passer rating allowed below 70 on the road.
Wow.
Yeah.
Part of that, that's interesting that
it's almost 90 in Levi, but it's below 70 on the road, which I thought was interesting. I was really surprised by that.
It could be just the quality of the opponents too, because we had the Cowboys didn't do very well against us.
Thankfully. I don't care. I don't care what kind of rivalry our teams develop in the future. I will always be so happy when somebody beats the Cowboys.
Yeah, just like me and the Seahawks. I mean, I hate the Cowboys almost as much. And the Eagles have climbed right up in there. Let me tell you, Ryan. I mean, just the discourse between our two teams in the last offseason, definitely some of it goes pretty ugly.
I would say with the way the NFC Championship game went down, it definitely heated up the rivalry. But I think that just, it's kind of an iron sharpen iron scenario where like the 49ers and the Eagles are the cream of the crop in the NFC. So they're going to see each other again next year. They're going to see maybe twice. They'll see each other this year, maybe twice. I think it'll develop into something because there's potential for long-term greatness between both teams.
There you go. Real quick, let me do a quick commercial break. The logo you see up in the corner, TTG, it stands for the Travelstead Group. They're a retail and hospitality logistics company. So they do transportation and warehousing for brick and mortar. They do FFE, which is fixed furniture and equipment. They do OSE, which is operating supplies and equipment. They do new store openings, rollouts, relocations, decommissions. From the first mile to the final mile and everywhere in between, Travelstead has you covered. Let them know how they can help you via air, ocean, or land. They do closed loop solutions for retail and hospitality. So it's Nick and Henry are the go-to guys there, and they have 100% US-based support. So when you pick up the phone, you know that you'll be talking to somebody here who understands what you and your business do. Unlike others who may have overseas call centers who have no clue what you and your company do. The website is in the description for the show, in my YouTube About page, in my Twitter bio, also on my, oh man, my young son is laying a dawn out there. Also in my Instagram and Facebook pages. If you follow me there, check out the video, click the link, and tell them Ted sent you. I appreciate that. Thanks in advance for letting me pay the bills there, Ryan. I appreciate it.
Sorry about that. Had to pull a Jason Kelsey and take advantage of the commercial break to, I don't know if you heard about that or not. Kelsey went to the locker room Sunday night at the start of overtime to go to the bathroom.
No way. Well, you're quick. I had no idea. And yeah, perfect timing. So no worries at all. Let's see here. He's saying the Brian Culp showing love for special teams. Absolutely. Mitch Wisnowski, our punter, he deserves it though. Wish is doing some incredible things with coffin corner kicks and the way he spins the ball in, where it's like spinning like a record as it comes in, and just makes it very difficult to field, especially inside the 10-yard line. He doesn't have a lot of really long gross punts, but his net punts are very long because there's almost never any return. Even on the open field punts, he kicks it really, really high and gives the coverage team time to get down there. And so he's not a booming punter, but boy, it's so effective.
I think that's fine for the Eagles. Britton Covey's okay, but like really, I just hope that like he holds on to the football. He doesn't have to do anything fantastic on the return. So I'm okay as long as, like I said, he just holds on to the football. That's my hope and prayer every time we do a punt return, is that we just hang on to the football.
There you go. Randy says, I have a question for Ryan. How many times did the Eagles have to play 3 games in 2 weeks this year?
Monday night games we have. Twice, maybe? Once? That's a good question. I don't know that off the top of my head.
I got 9 and problems, but a Mitch ain't one. I like that. That's good. It's a little. It says Jay-Z, right?
Yeah.
Word banana ball. Yeah, Mitch. He's got a crazy technique for coffin corner kicks, punts. There's it twice. Once starting on 4 days rest.
Yeah, I think Thursday night football needs to go, but that's my opinion.
Yeah, we got hosed on a bunch of stuff this year. We're negative 20 rest days on the season, which is the worst in the league. The Ravens, who we play on Christmas Day, are +9 rest days on the year. So by the time we play them, they'll be pretty close to a month more rest than us on this short season. which is crazy. That's why I switched my prediction for that game, even before they were playing this well. But just before the season, I thought that might be when we'd lose, that I normally would have picked us to win.
That segues me into another stat I was looking into. So as far as strength of schedule this year goes, the Niners have actually played a harder schedule than the Eagles have this year.
That's hard to believe because the only good teams we've played are the Browns. The Steelers. That's the sneaky one because we played them week 1 and they just absolutely shot the bed against us.
So the Niners' strength of schedule so far this year, their opponents' combined record to this point is 62-61. And their strength of schedule the rest of the year for the team's records as it stands today is 36-33. Their tough ones are in Philly, Seahawks, and the Ravens. The Eagles' strength of schedule so far this year is 53-65. I think a lot of people are getting a lot of recency bias because the Eagles' schedule has definitely gotten tough the last 5 weeks.
And you guys won them. That's the other thing.
Yeah, and it's the only number that matters. But before that, it was the Jets. It was just really bad record teams. So 53-65 for the Eagles, and their remaining strength of schedule is 32-37 because we have the Niners in Dallas, and then we're in Seattle. But after that, we have the Giants twice and the Cardinals. So I thought that was a little interesting too. I was wondering how hard the schedule had been for each team, and I was like, wow, to this point, the Niners have actually played a tougher schedule.
Yeah, another one we got hosed on was we played 4 teams coming off byes this year. So Browns, Bengals, Jags, but at least with the Jags, we were coming off our bye too. Yeah. So at least that was somewhat fair. But how do you have 4 teams go off their byes when teams only have 1 bye? And then the Cards will be coming off their bye when we play them in this
the schedule
bird stretch that we're on.
Schedule was interesting this year because I feel like the Eagles have had a bit of a gauntlet here too. I feel like they clustered all the good teams in one go, and it's kind of, I figured they would have spread it out over the season. I mean, I'm sure it probably takes, a magician to make an NFL schedule because you have to consider teams' byes and who's traveling where, and there's all kinds of restrictions, can't play on, Monday night and then Thursday night. So I'm not going to critique them too hard, because it kind of is what it is. I'm sure over the course of, a few years, it balances itself out. But
apparently AI did it. So I don't know.
Oh, geez.
I know. So that maybe explains it. I guess AI hates the Niners. So, which is weird because we're in the heart of Silicon Valley. They should love us. But hey, what are you going to do?
Maybe what's your score prediction? I haven't got a score prediction.
Yeah, I mean, I think 21-17 is probably about right. I've been going with a lot of 27 and 24 point scores for the Niners, but I'll say Niners 20 and Eagles 17.
That's like I said, if this game was in Levi, I'd probably pick that number with those respective teams. It's just I don't know. I'm at a loss for words. Like, I watched the Eagles and I looked at Bill on Sunday and I was like, how much worse does this team have to play in the first half? Like, it was embarrassing almost, but they win. So
that's all that matters.
Yeah.
Rudy Musich in the house says Eagles pampered and bailed out each week again. Ha ha. Well, each and every week again. Ha ha. I don't know about that, but we'll see. I guess we'll see this Sunday. James Journal says 31-17. Screw the Eagles. And by the way, my 20-17, I think, like I kind of mentioned earlier, it would probably be like pretty close to 20 early in the game for the Niners, and then the Eagles scratching and clawing their way back. I like I said, if we were going back and forth, blow for blow, I don't see us winning a close game that's close for most of the game. I think it would only have to be where you guys got close at the end.
If we go back and forth from the jump, I will be ecstatic, because I haven't seen the Eagles go back and forth from the jump with anybody since the Commanders game, and before then I couldn't tell you.
There you go. Well, it seems like a good point to wrap things up, unless there was any other burning desires that you had, Ryan. But I feel like
I got one question for you, so I think the answer
you want. I mean, I have to at least 5. So
okay, who in your mind is the number 1 wide receiver on the? Is it Ayuk or is it Debo?
I mean, Debo is wide receiver 1. and Ayuk has better stats. But other than maybe one game this season, most of it was like kind of like there's that garbage time, like there were garbage opponents. He obviously Ayuk was really good against the Seahawks, and I think he was pretty good against the Bucks too. But like this week, when push comes to shove, like I think you'll see Debo will be the one that we'll turn to. That him and CMC are these two type of players that just, and Kittle kind of runs over people too, but Debo and CMC are just, they're the dominators. They're the ones that are just, there's nobody else like them.
Yeah, for sure.
And Ayuk is a really good route runner, and he has decent hands, definitely better hands than Debo. But I just don't feel like most of the time, again, he was awesome against the Seahawks, so it's kind of hard to say this. Maybe it's changing. I don't know. But I just feel like when push comes to shove, Debo's the one. I mean, put it this way: when we were losing those 3 games, it was Trent Williams and Debo who were out. So,
I would say a lot of, I'm going to say even more of that was attributed to Trent Williams. Man, it is so huge for a quarterback to have a Hall of Fame tackle on his blind side. Purdy doesn't have to worry about anybody. I mean, what were the numbers? Myles Garrett had the best game against Trent Williams in his career, and he only had like a 35% win rate or something like that. I mean, that's outstanding.
Well, also in the run game is really where we felt it, because the replacement for Trent Williams, Jalen Moore, I think he did a pretty good job. I mean, he's certainly not Trent Williams in pass blocking, but close enough that we didn't really miss him too much there. But it was our running yards per carry dropped precipitously, and some of that's Debo too, because Debo just steals so much attention. So more of a spark plug. Yeah, I mean, Ayuk is more of a pure receiver. And Ayuk, the poor guy, he's on a run first team, and he's kind of the 4th option because, you've got Debo, you've got CMC, you got Kittle. But he's starting to get his. You can see it. He's starting to get his catches and his more TDs. Because for a minute there, a couple games ago, he only had 2 TDs for the season.
Yeah.
And so that is starting to turn around after the Bucks and Seahawks games. So, but I mean, Debo for me, he's the one you can't replace.
Yeah, Debo and CMC are elite level playmakers, but I think you said it as far as like pure receiver ability. I think Ayuk, like in a vacuum, but like that's not taking anything away from Debo's ability, obviously. But they're 2 totally different wide receivers anyway, so it's kind of hard to compare.
Yeah, Debo's not as good a route runner. Doesn't have as good hand, and Ayuk just has this crazy wingspan. And Debo has like little alligator arms, T-Rex arms, so very different builds. But but they said it during the Seahawks game. It's like the play ends, and like Debo's never on the ground. It's so crazy. The guy, he is like almost always upright, which is incredible. He's just tree trunk legs essentially, and just a solid lower body weighting, like a Weeble wobble back in the day. It's probably before your time, but
yeah, I know
Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. That's the Debo's wobble, but they don't fall down. Oh, that's great. I love
that. Get that patented real quick.
I think I should. That's great. But yeah, so Ryan, thanks for joining. I appreciate it. Thanks to everyone in the chat. Everybody make sure you check out at BSing_sports on YouTube. Ryan is at Ryan BSing Sports on Twitter and X, and Bill is kind of the same thing too, right? At Bill at BSing.
Yeah, we both mainly just use the BSing account, though. You can probably just advertise that one. I'm hardly ever on my personal one anymore.
But they're great guys. They've been great guests many times on here, and also have to put it out there if you're interested in doing a follow-up show, just commit to me before the game, obviously, because it's hard for me to commit after a loss. I probably would do it anyway, but definitely, if we put something on the calendar, I'll definitely do a follow-up show, win or lose. So if you're interested, just lock me down and we'll figure that out.
Absolutely. I'll reach out to you later in the week.
All right. Sounds good, Ryan. Tell Bill I said hi. Thanks everybody who stopped by. The chat was live. It was a lot of fun as always. And I'll just say peace and go Niners. You want to give us a Fly Eagles Fly or something like that.
Go Birds, baby. Fly Eagles fly.
There you go. Thanks, everybody.